SuperTalk Mississippi media production.
From the deer stand to the bass boat and everywhere in between, Hunter's Hollow has all you need. Firearms, ammo, bows, fishing rods, and more. The latest in gear and accessories, plus Thunder Hollow Indoor Gun Range. Hunter's Hollow, Highway 6 West, between Oxford and Batesville. Online, huntershollow.com.
MidDays with Gerard Gibert is on the air. MidDays with Gerard Gibert is powered by C-Spire. Power your home or business with C-Spire Fiber. To learn more, visit supertalk.fm/C-Spire. C-Spire Fiber powers SuperTalk Mississippi. Get ready to go beyond the headlines and join a meaningful conversation with people from around the state. You're listening to MidDays with Gerard Gibert here on SuperTalk Mississippi.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Midday SuperTalk Mississippi. I'm your host, Gerard Gibert, along with Rhino in the Element Wealth studio, guiding you through the middle of your day with facts, fodder, and fine music. Man, that was disappointing, Rhino. I really thought they had a chance going into it, but
I mean, they did. If the U.S. men's national team had shown up last night and had been able to roll with the punches and impose their will on the match like they were able to for stretches of the match.
Yeah.
But not really effectively, then it would have been at least a presentable performance. But that was just pathetic. I mean, Malik Tillman had that brief moment of brilliance, becoming only, I think, the second person ever to have 2 free kick goals at a single World Cup. I mean, there are other players that have done that. Names that you've likely heard of, even if you've never considered soccer to be a sport you want to pay attention to, like Pele or Beckham. Those are the kind of names of people that have free kick goals at World Cups. Yeah. Tillman had 2 for the U.S. this World Cup. So that's about the only bright spot, the only silver lining on that performance. They came out flat, overwhelmed, and got punched in the mouth in the first minute. And seemed shell-shocked after that.
Didn't look like the same team to me.
Not
really
the
didn't.
same level of confidence, not the same level of communication, not the hustle to get into open passing lanes and to provide outlets for your fellow teammates that were in trouble. Just all around a poor performance. But even in that poor performance, I tweeted about it on social media, there was that 61-second window where it seemed like the football gods were going to smile upon the Team America, and it was going to be okay. And all of that dread that had come creeping in from that first minute just kind of washed away, and you're like, all right, it's 1-1. Game on. Let's regroup. Let's get this going. And then to immediately give up another soft goal within 2 minutes of time, but like 60 seconds of actual play, was just disappointing.
Very.
And then the goalie, Matt Freese, just flubbing a clearance. Just, you got to kick that ball. You can't put your toe in the dirt. You can't make those kind of mistakes at that level. And they got punished. And you could tell the whole thing got deflated. And I said yesterday a loss would be disappointing but not deflating because I didn't think they had this kind of loss in them. I didn't think they would come out this flat. But they did. And when it went down 3-1, there were flashes of brilliance. There were moments of inspiration. You could tell certain guys on the team never gave up, but some of them did. And you got to point the finger to Christian Pulisic. You don't like to kick a man when he's down because he hurt himself. But this was the World Cup for him to come out, and whether or not he wants to be the face of the team, whether or not he wants to be a star, he was the world-class talent the team was depending on, and he was pretty much silent for the majority of this World Cup. I know you don't want to talk bad about somebody that got injured, but that's become a part of his story. He has not risen to the heights he was seemingly set for because he can't stay healthy.
Well, and I really was disappointed, and the only salvation for me last night is after that, flipping the channels, Rudy was on, and it kind of lifted my spirits. That's always such a cool, feel-good movie, so well done. Great American story of grit and determination and playing obviously way above punching above your weight, as the saying goes, and playing above your skills and
that just
and your
seems to
size.
be something this team can't do. I mean, every single box has been checked, every single cycle to try to get better, to try to raise the level, but it appears the round of 16 is Team USA's level, and it's going to take a gargantuan effort to overcome that, it seems. I mean, everything else has been pumped into this. We've had cycles in the past where a lot of focus is put on a core group or a young squad or a new flashy coach or this or that, and ultimately it comes down to, hopefully, this is my optimism. This is my putting on my fan hat and being as optimistic as possible after a deflating loss like that. My hope is that there is a 8, 10, 12-year-old kid that watched this whole tournament, got caught up in all the excitement and the fun and the run up to last night, and saw that loss as inspiration for becoming the next best thing. And it very well may be 12, 16 years down the road before we see that.
Yeah.
But I have to think it's possible just because of how the U.S. performs in dang near any other sport they put their mind to.
Well, that's what I was going to ask you. Like, what's missing? How do we not have the necessary complement of ingredients to field a team that can win it all consistently?
You could see it on the pitch last night. The way the Belgian players, because that's the other deflating, embarrassing part of it, was the Belgian coach picked out our strengths and played against our strengths. And he did so with basically his backups in a lot of positions. He did not play his stars from the get-go because he knew he had other talents in his squad that could match up against us in the way he needed to win.
Yeah.
They gambled it all on that first punch because they were looking to get us off our game, and if that meant giving up a goal early on their end, they were okay with that because they needed to get us off our game. So when you look at that and you look at the Belgian quality, that comes from having a ball at your feet as soon as you're walking and being given real, actionable coaching from a very early age throughout your development.
Do you think maybe that we as Americans tend to push our children into the more traditional American sports, baseball, football, basketball, just as an example?
In the past, you could have said that, but in the last few generations, soccer has grown and grown in popularity.
No doubt about it.
The problem is, like I said yesterday, and this is not, I'm not asking the federal government to start subsidizing U.S. soccer. I'm not saying that. But in the countries where soccer is king, in the countries that have a chance to win the World Cup, their government subsidizes the team, funds the development of young talent, builds infrastructure that we just don't have. And when you compound that with the youth game in America is pay to play. There's very little entry for a young talent that doesn't have parents that are sitting on six-figure incomes.
Yeah.
Like, it's really, like, you look at one of the greatest U.S. soccer stars to ever hit the field, Clint Dempsey. He's been behind the bench commentating on a lot of these matches. Clint Dempsey was a poor kid from Nacogdoches, Texas. In our system, more than likely, 99 times out of 100, that kid does not get discovered. And that's just, it's a part of our system that I don't see a way of changing it unless you take the opportunities like they had last night and you grow the popularity of the sport and you grow the attention the sport gets. Then you have people willing to foot the bill to advance the sport at the youth level, because that's not the sexy part of the sport. But that's the part of the sport that wins World Cups.
I think that's right. Where I think it's fair to say in many of these other countries, that's really it, right? From a sports perspective, as a youth, I guess maybe, hockey, little basketball here and there. But the focus, by far, the prominent sport, is soccer. And so you're right. They got a soccer ball in their feet when they can walk, probably in the stroller before they can walk.
So their comfort and their skill level on the ball, their floor is higher than our floor.
Yeah, I think that's right. But so maybe that's what it's going to take to field a team that could compete with these other countries that seem to get to this point and have our number in the World Cup. We got Drake Bassett, president and CEO of the Palmer Home, coming on at 10:35. It's Rickey Cole, former chair of the Mississippi Democratic Party, at 12:05. Lots of news and stories to get to. We'll be right back in the Element Wealth studio.
In Mississippi.
They're rolling. Middays with Gerard Gibert.
What? This is so
Awesome. On SuperTalk, Mississippi.
Last Sunday morning, the sunshine felt like rain. The week before, they all seemed the same. With the help of God and two friends, I come to realize I still had two strong legs and even wings to fly.
We are back in the Element Wealth studio, still nursing the voice a bit today. Much better, though, for sure. Just came down with something after the show last Thursday that I think a little sinus infection, but you know how sometimes that can get your vocal cords as part of that. But certainly much better today, so apologize for that, folks. Bear with me. I think pretty close to 100% tomorrow is what I feel will be the case. Just rest probably does more for it than anything. So again, Drake Bassett, president and CEO of Palmer Home, up next. And then Rickey Cole, he's the former chair of the Mississippi Democratic Party, at 12:05. Don't forget, Rhino, you and I will be, along with the entire SuperTalk gang, will be at the Palmer Home for Children Radiothon. That's next Thursday, July 16th. It's the 14th annual Radiothon. And it's on SuperTalk Mississippi every year, as you know. There are children across Mississippi that need a loving home, and many times these children are caught in unimaginable circumstances. That's why we're going to call on you for your help. You'll learn how Palmer Home for Children serves vulnerable children next week during our Radiothon. It's a faith-based organization that doesn't take or receive government money, and that's why we need your help. Tune in and join us for the 14th annual Palmer Home for Children Radiothon. That's next Thursday, July the 16th, of course, on SuperTalk Mississippi, and that's an all-day deal. And we'll have, of course, a stated fundraising goal, and if we achieve that, you're going to look like a new person before the day is out, because your beard and locks will be significantly reduced, and we'll start it all over for next year. What a great organization. Proud of this organization, SuperTalk Mississippi, for being such a big part of their success as we host the Radiothon every year and usually do pretty good raising a little money. We, of course, visit with the staff And we often visit with house parents and residents as well. It's so cool, isn't it, Rhino, when you see the children when they come into that room where we're set up, and they're just in good spirits. They're being what children should be. They're happy, floating around and talking to folks and just enjoying themselves with smiles on their faces. That's what a child's life should be all about. And that's what Palmer Home does, is just provide some stability and normalcy in a child's life. It's critical that they have that sort of stability and nurturing so that they can grow up to be successful, happy adults. Simple as that. That's what it's all about. Looking forward to it. Oh, Graham Plattner up there in Maine, he's got a bit of a problem, doesn't he? Now it appears that there are some rather serious allegations about the U.S. Senate candidates' indiscretions, shall we say. Allegations of rape by an ex-girlfriend released yesterday. And now you've got leader Chuck Schumer and his counterpart, Democratic Senator Kirsten Gillibrand. She is chairwoman of the Democratic Senatorial Campaign Committee. They are calling for him to withdraw from the race. Now, I believe this means that since the party controls primaries, right, Rhino, that the Democrats could field somebody else. Doesn't mean that Republican incumbent Senator Susan Collins would run in November in the general election unopposed by a Democratic opponent. I think this would work pretty much the way the presidential election worked of 24, where Joe Biden stepped out. Now, it could be that it's likely based on rules in the state that are established by the party, because, again, parties in general control their primaries. Not the general election, but the primaries. Yeah, they said Graham Plattner needs to immediately withdraw as the Democratic nominee for Senate and allow Maine Democrats the opportunity to choose a new candidate who can defeat Susan Collins. That the statement from Schumer and Gillibrand. You see anything there? You looking at that?
Yeah, because I know they had some changes a couple of years ago to their primaries, but I don't think it would impact this.
Okay. Yeah,
they went from a closed primary state to a semi-open primary state in 2024.
Well, that could be different, but I'm getting the impression based on that statement that the Democrats would be able to, I don't know how that works, replace them. Because they had an open primary? Is that what you said? Semi-open.
Semi-open, yeah.
What does that mean?
It allows for unaffiliated voters to vote in any party primary without enrolling in the party.
Okay.
But if you're enrolled in a party, you have to vote in your party's primary. And I think there's another stipulation where if you're enrolled as a voter for a third party that doesn't have a candidate, you're not allowed to vote in a primary.
That makes sense. Okay. Well, so that seems to deal more with the voters, right, than it does the candidates. I can't imagine that Schumer and Gillibrand would be making these statements if there wasn't a path for them to put up a different candidate to represent the Democratic Party. But that's, when you look at this guy's history, it's storied. It's amazing he got this far just looking at some of the scandals. A Nazi tattoo, lied repeatedly about the Nazi tattoo, said he would rape people. He's on record of saying that. Sexted with women while married. Bragged about drawing penises in porta potties. praised Islamic terrorists, said he's a communist, joined an app known to be used by predators to contact minors, and there are numerous allegations of sexual assault. So I put something up on my social media yesterday that ignited quite the firestorm. Quite simply, I said that in many ways the midterms are shaping up to be a choice between the Declaration of Independence and the Communist Manifesto. And that has drawn rebuke and criticism that is honestly quite vile and just filled with all sorts of vulgarity and just incredible hate speech, which I don't care. It doesn't bother me. They're just idiots as far as I'm concerned. But these are people all over the country. This thing went viral. That was not my expectation. It was not my intent. But basically, they contend that I don't know the difference between socialism and communism. They would, of course, be wrong. And they have called me a retard, just so you know. That seems to be like a default word that stupid people use to denigrate others. And they argue. They take exception to my assessment. They don't believe that the Democratic Party is leaning heavily towards communism. Right now, they just describe themselves as socialists. But here you have a candidate for U.S. Senate who has in the past said he's a communist. So what am I missing here? And there are others. It's not just him, and you know that. This candidate in Colorado we discussed last week that defeated in the Democratic primary a 30-year incumbent in the House is too a pro-communist candidate and discusses it openly. These people are delusional and they're ignoring reality, and I would say the same applies to some of my friends on the right who think that this is hyperbole, and I don't think it is, honestly. Coming right back in the Element Wealth studio with Drake Bassett from Palmer Home.
From theseabrook.com.
Day, July 16th.
It's time for
Middays with Gerard Gibert on SuperTalk, Mississippi.
Help! I need somebody. Help! Not just anybody. Help! You know I need someone. Help! When I was younger, so much younger than today, I never needed anybody's help in any way. But now these days are gone, I'm not so self-assured. Now I find I change my mind and open up the doors.
Welcome back, everyone. It's Middays from the Element Wealth studio. We are pleased to welcome now Drake Bassett, President and CEO of Palmer Home. Hey, Drake.
Hey, Gerard. How you doing?
Doing great. We are looking forward to coming your way next Thursday for the annual Radiothon. The entire SuperTalk gang will be on hand. What's it look like?
It's looking great. We just had a call this morning, and we were just talking about the schedule and everybody getting excited. There's just, this is our 14th year.
Hard to believe,
and
man.
So it's hard to believe, but it's also just such a pleasure because the momentum starts to build early. And listening to the staff talk about the different people who are going to come on and share, their piece of the story. And that's really the beautiful thing about Palmer Home is a lot of people have their piece of the story. And I always say to people out in the public, you don't want to let Palmer Home slip by. Put your fingerprints on it. Get involved in some way. And so on Super Talk Day, we get to hear a lot about those stories. And I think it's fantastic. So we're looking forward to it.
Yeah, you know that it inspires so many people. as you say, Drake, when they hear these stories from the staff, from the house parents, from the children as well, from you. They hear these stories over the air, and Mississippians are generous. They're inspired, and they dig into their wallets, and they help out.
Well, they sure have. And if you look at the timeline, we started this in 2012, and this is our 14th. During that time, Radiothon has raised over $3 million for Palmer Home.
Man, that's great.
And that's incredible. And when you think about what that money's doing, I was thinking just yesterday, there's a young lady who's with us. She's, about to wrap up high school, about to step off into the world. And she was here at that first Radiothon and has been with us all that time. And so when you think about people supporting what we do at Palmer Home, yep, you're supporting children who've been under our care for a long time. You're also supporting children who are coming hot off the streets, hot off of difficult situations, who need immediate care. They need a place to call home, and they need the people that we have here. And so whether it's $20 or $200 or whatever, put your fingerprints on it. Get involved. Donate to Palmer Home, because you really do make a difference in the lives of these children.
And Drake, for me at least, and Rhino and I have had this discussion, we talked about it earlier today, that when we're in the room there and around lunchtime, when some of the children come in and they've got a spring in their step, they got smiles on their faces, they're talking to the house parents, the staff, other children, they're just being children, having a good time, which is what they should be doing at that age.
That's exactly right.
And so you know that good is being done by Palmer Home. You can see it in the faces of these beautiful children.
Well, I appreciate you saying that, because I think it's so true, and not everybody gets to see that. But I was listening to a few minutes of your program before I came on, and we've got some big decisions in the world to make. I mean, we're kind of at the brink of making some big choices, right?
Sure.
So what we teach people and what we teach children matters. It matters a lot. And here at Palmer Home, we do try to teach children about faith in God. We try to teach them about work and responsibility. We try to teach them to take responsibility of their own life, and that, when you get in a position to be able to do good, then you want to be able to help somebody else.
Sure.
And these are just core fundamental principles that need to be taught. And so when we see kids here happy, constructive, working, we know that those principles are timeless, and we know that they're making a difference in children's lives. And that's what Palmer Home. So when people give to Palmer Home, they do need to know, yeah, I'm giving to an organization that is sharing important values that will last these children a lifetime and will impact the world we live in.
Yeah, and the point, I think, also to even extend it further than that, Drake, is that when they grow up in a loving, stable, thriving, nurturing environment, which all children, in my view, are entitled to, they do go on to be productive, happy adults. And guess what? We all as society benefit from that when they then become contributing adults.
That is so true. And it starts, I ask the question sometimes. I'll go over to these university groups, some of the young people, and I'll ask the question, who taught you how to give? And, sometimes kids look at me and they're like, I don't know. No one did. And then other people go, oh, I know. My grandparents taught me to give. I started, setting money aside every Sunday or whatever. What we teach these children really, really matters. And you're right. Once they've heard those things, they go off to become productive citizens, and they give. And they give and they serve. And we just need people like that in our world today. And so I'm grateful that Palmer Home is trying to do its part in helping children who otherwise might not have had those privileges or opportunities, but we're giving them to them. And we're doing that because of the generosity of all the listeners here at SuperTalk who have made a difference and will continue to make a difference.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. And Drake, you often have to wonder, what path would these children have gone down had they not come into the care of Palmer Home during that difficult transitional period?
That's very true, and especially when children come to us and they're quite young, we're very involved with their families. We know the circumstances. We know the things that maybe someday in the future the child will come to understand about their own biological family. All of those difficulties are real, and we know that if the child had not made it to us, and sometimes that's one of the noblest things people can do. If they cannot manage their circumstances, they make their way to Palmer Home, and we help with that child. But we know what that child would have wound up with. We know the difficulties they would have had to face. And we see night and day. A child that comes to Palmer Home, it's daylight. It's beautiful. They've got a future. They've got people. They've got support. They've got education. They've got faith. The list goes on and on. If you don't make it to Palmer Home from those circumstances, you've got darkness, you've got pain, you've got suffering, you've got potentially a limited life. And so we believe Palmer Home truly is a beautiful thing to offer to families in need and children who need to have a place to call home. I've seen it year after year after year, lives transformed, beautiful. And it's just such a great thing to know that it's been here for over 100 years and it's going to continue to be here.
It's a good point you make, Drake, that we probably should bring up is that sometimes there are familial circumstances where they realize that they're overwhelmed by having a child, and they come to Palmer Home for help. And there's absolutely no shame in that, and that's the point.
That's right. That is exactly right. In fact, I have more than once. I've held mothers, I've held fathers, I've held grandparents who are weeping. They're in pain over their life situation or their circumstances, but I have told them, you are doing an honorable thing, and we will do everything in our power to care for your child and keep you connected. But in that moment, they're doing the very best they can to bring that child to someone else who maybe can help them. And that's, we've seen it over and over and over again. And I'm just so grateful that the attitude of the staff here feels that way too. They want to support that family, and we're here to help children. No judgments. That's not our business. There's plenty of room for that other places. Our job is to be here to serve, and we are.
And the point of that gesture in that action is putting the child first.
Absolutely. You couldn't have said it better. A lot of times in our discussions here, we'll ask the question when something comes up, whether it's a decision that has to be made or something that we want to do. That's the question. What is in the best interest of the child? It typically answers everything. If you get that answer right, you're home free. You'll do the right thing. It may be hard, but you're going to do the right thing. And so when families ask that question, what's in the best interest of this child? Sometimes that means coming to Palmer Home.
Yeah, and it's a difficult decision, but again, the needs of the child have got to be prioritized over everything else. And I think it's important to point out, Drake, your team, your staff, they're guided by that mission as well.
They are. I am humbled, truly, by the people I get to work with, because they just push through some of the most difficult circumstances with families, with children, with challenges. It's just amazing what they do. And it's always driven by that idea. How can we help? And what's in the best interest of the child? And they don't get tired of that. I'm always thinking, I know they get tired, but they never tire of the mission, and they never tire of the spirit behind it.
Drake, we appreciate you coming on, and of course, we look forward to seeing you and everybody else next week.
Yeah, man. We'll have hot dogs for you. Come on.
Sounds good. Drake Bassett, President and CEO of Palmer Home. We're coming right back in the Element Wealth studio.
Come on. Middays with Gerard Gibert.
All right, we are back
on SuperTalk, Mississippi.
Okay, on the C Spire text line, let's see. Jimbo says USMT is getting better, so is the rest of the world. This was the most athletic squad we've ever fielded. Randy in Starkville said they looked exhausted from the start. I would agree with that. I agree with that. Michael in Brookhaven said, I watched Rudy also. Never gets old, does it, Michael? It's just a great film, and it's just a feel-good movie. You know, about somebody overcoming incredibly difficult odds and adverse circumstances and getting their butt knocked down at practice every day by people that weighed twice as much as he did. And I just loved the fact that he said, I wanted to prove to people that said, you got no chance that I could do this, including his father. And it's just a good movie. Really is. Good message, I think. Great story. You know, at the end, when the credits are rolling there, Rhino, there's a photo of him, the actual Rudy, sitting on the bench. Black and white photo. It was 1975. And there's a statement that says, since 1975, no other player has been carried off the field by the Notre Dame football team. I wonder if that's still the case, given when the movie was made, which was several years ago. I suspect it is. And I don't know. I thought that was interesting that it's been so long. 75. Man, that's incredible. Yeah, it's a good movie, though. Well, Jerry in Waynesboro says, word on the street is that Mitch McConnell is brain dead. Yeah, that's absolutely true. That rumors have been swirling about his health. Admitted to the hospital on June 14th. Conditions remain unknown, according to those that are paying more attention to this and are a little closer to the situation. But if I'm not mistaken, was it an ex-staffer or somebody in the political domain? The spokesperson for the senator said that Senator McConnell is still, this was June 24th, still working closely with staff on Senate business and Kentucky matters as he continues recovery. But on July 2nd, updated that Senator McConnell appreciates the outpouring of support he's receiving while he continues his recovery in the hospital. The senator continues to improve and is working closely with his staff. So, not really sure what exactly is going on here, but this is not.
I mean, if you take the famous name off of it and you just look at an elderly individual that has spent this much time in the hospital.
Yeah.
Statistically, they don't come home at his age if they've spent this much time
That's a good
in recovery.
point. That's a good point. But the question is,
not wishing any ill will on the man. It's just it's kind of the reality of the situation at hand.
Yeah, and all that is absolutely accurate. The question is he presently brain dead, which is the definition of dead, right? So I don't know, but that's the rumor that's going around. But
love the man or hate the man, the knowledge of if and when he is deceased is not privileged information for the masses. I don't know if that's the right way to put it. What I'm trying to say is, whether you love him or hate him, it's up to his family and his loved ones to determine if and when he goes or if and when the announcement is made. I can appreciate his constituents wanting to know whether or not they are represented, but you're still talking about a human life here. And like I said, love him or hate him, people are going to mourn his passing if he does pass.
Right.
So at least be human in this moment.
No, totally agree. And I think, so it may be rumors, but as you point out, it's somewhat reasonable to reach this conclusion, right? That this is probably the situation.
Yeah.
Just you summarized all of the factors there that would lead one to believe that, and then start, I guess, if you could call it a rumor. And it had to be considered a rumor today because there's nothing official. Until we get something official, it is, in fact, just buzz and rumor and that's being spread around.
Like, people are running with the fact that his daughter deleted her social media accounts. I mean, if my dad were in the hospital and it didn't look like he was coming home and everybody's saying all kind of crazy things about him, I'd delete mine too.
Yeah, that's a good point. Because people are just crazy. Speaking of which, we got one on the C Spire text line we'll get to on the other side of the break. It's time for Fox News Super Talk News, coming right back. Hour of Middays with Gerard Gibert is brought to you by the Mississippi Business Journal. Visit msbusinessjournal.com. Scott Coopwood, publisher and president.
Get ready to go beyond the headlines and join a meaningful conversation with people from around the state. Hello? You're listening to Middays with Gerard Gibert here on Super Talk, Mississippi.
Welcome back. It's hour 2 of Middays from the Element Wealth studio. So, Benny Thompson, oh man, he ain't real happy about the Trump accounts. Of course, those launched on July 4th. The president, he rang the bell for the opening of the markets yesterday to commemorate the Trump accounts. Call attention to it. Benny Thompson on his Twitter said, "It's safe to say I would pass on a Trump account." Trump University, the congressman goes on to say, already taught us what happens when his name is on the brochure. Does a $25 million settlement ring a bell? So let me get this straight. This is a Democratic congressman that never saw a federal dollar he didn't covet. And now he's recommending to his constituents and others, honestly, given this is his official Representative Benny G. Thompson Twitter account, that they not participate in this program. What's wrong with that guy?
Well, I mean, he has to keep his constituents poor and stupid or they wouldn't vote for him.
That's just incredible. Now, I'll be honest. I have some squishy thoughts about the government throwing $1,000 that we don't have, honestly, at newborns, but I do very much support the concept. I like it in that I think that probably one of the greatest takeaways from this program is it teaches families and hopefully youngsters at an early age the value of capitalism and investing and saving and planning and taking, I think, a more of an interest in the health and the growth of the nation's economy. I think that's a good thing. When you got your money invested, you pay more attention to that. Of course you do. So, and I think that the waiver of the penalties for early withdrawal, which is in effect a tax, I think those are good things. I'm all about lower taxes in that respect. But what the congressman here is saying, he's warning people, stay away. This is further evidence of his deep contempt and really irrational disdain for the president. I feel that's much of what I experienced on my social media posts, which I just find hilarious. All these people from all over the country, if not the world, that have seen fit to troll the post, and the stuff they have deposited in the comments is astonishing. The level of stupidity is incredible. And in fact, we got a response. We got a text here, I should say, on the C Spire text line. That's 601-879-4395. This individual says, don't y'all feel crunchy on how you treated him talking about Mitch McConnell in office? Y'all should be a damn shame. Well, the first thing I would say is to learn how to write and communicate the English language properly. Second thing I would say, when you sign up to be a United States Senator, you are subject to criticism. Now, I personally don't hurl ad hominems. I don't insult people, but I will certainly, that are in the political realm, but I will call out anyone who is elected when I think they make bad decisions in office. He's made plenty. I will also call them out if they don't seem to, in my view, live up and personify the standards and the behavior and the actions I expect. When you're the majority leader or minority leader, as he has been in the United States Senate, and unfortunately, as you know, Rhino, the way our system works, both parties, it's based on tenure, not capability, not qualifications, not vision. And in this case, I think he was weak as a majority leader and as a minority leader, and I disagreed with many of his policy positions. But as you said, he is a human being, and he no doubt is facing death soon. And we do have human feelings in that regard. We hope he rests in peace when that time comes. We don't really know what his status is today, but that's separate than his political resume. And clear-thinking people can make that discernment. Some people aren't clear-thinking people. I think that's the bottom line here. And just a quick...
Some people are addle-brained imbeciles that have been racked with Trump derangement syndrome so badly that their brains are melting.
And Rhino is actually accurate in his description of this individual. I know that by simply perusing the history of the texts sent by this individual to the show. Eating up with it, clearly. So, no, I don't have any regret about my policy criticisms of Mitch McConnell, about my criticism and condemnation of him as the majority and minority leader. His behavior, his performance there, I felt was not what the party or the country needed. Gee, that's fair game, is it not? But I can separate that from my feelings for him, my compassion for him, for a human being. The man has led a good life. And I appreciate and respect his willingness to put himself in the fire there as a United States Senator. No doubt that everyone deserves respect for that. But that doesn't mean that when you criticize them, that you're being inhuman. And I do wish that we would invest more in criticizing and debating policy and decisions and actions and behavior and comportment than the personal aspect of an individual. But that's just me. I respect the right of others to handle it as they see fit. I've personally experienced that in the last 24 hours from these idiots that are out there on my post, hundreds of them, by the way, that have seen fit to insult me, and that's fine. That I just laugh about it and really just express all sorts of vile comments and use all such of what I believe is inappropriate language. And I know you kind of scold me sometimes as being a little old-fashioned in that regard. That's fine. That's just me. That's my belief. That's what I feel is appropriate. But in the case of these people, it's because they have a limited vocabulary. It's what it comes down to.
They have limited cognitive ability, or they wouldn't believe the nonsense they believe.
I'm not going to walk away from my belief that the left in this country is certainly leaning heavily into not just socialism, but communism. When you've got candidates who have expressed, their praise for communism. Like I said before, in the old days, we argued about how high the tax rates ought to be. But nowadays, we literally argue about the fundamental economic system that should be observed and followed in this country. And there are leftists that do want to seize private property and control the economy as they do in China and North Korea. Coming right back in the Element Wealth studio.
And now, the talk that keeps Mississippi talking.
Now, on to the real part.
Dynamite!
On SuperTalk, Mississippi.
Welcome back. Walmart has lowered prices on thousands of items, including ground beef. They took this action, 12% decrease, I think a 37% decrease on a six-pack of Coke. The president is praising Walmart. They say it's in response to the president pushing companies to see what they can do to lower their prices, especially with the 250th birthday of the nation. That's what they say is driving it. So they're lowering these prices for the summer. Interestingly enough, there are some now industry analysts who are predicting an oil glut. This was really incredible. Just not too long ago, we were thinking oil may bump all the way up to the $130, $140 a barrel range, which would be more than double what it was before the Iran war began. But now investors are bracing for a glut. And here's what they say. Not only has OPEC announced that they're going to produce more oil, so an increase in supply, but the other side, the demand side, nobody knows why, but China has radically reduced its imports considerably. And it's not really well understood the cause for that. So what we got going on is a situation where an increase in supply, especially from the Middle East, and China's decreased demand. Remember, oil is a globally traded commodity, so demand and supply across the globe are the key inputs to determining the price. Man, there's some that say we may be looking at $45 a barrel oil next year, but I think in the short term, we're looking at oil perhaps getting around the $60 a barrel mark, and that is expected to drive inflation down. And so now some of those who forecast the interest rate actions on the part of the Fed are feeling a little better about the prospect of rates coming down later on this year, whereas just a short month ago, all of those prognosticators in the futures markets were betting perhaps on rate increases to curb inflation. So we will see. This could be good news for consumers. I know people are ready to see those prices come down at the pump ASAP, and I think you'll see steady decreases over the next month, crawling back to pretty close to where they were before we launched attacks on Iran. Meanwhile, Iran, they once again are threatening traffic in the Strait, threatening to attack ships in the Strait. They're just foolish, in my view. But they're still creating havoc and chaos in the Strait. And that is, I think, weighing on markets. The Dow down 156 today. The NASDAQ also in negative territory. Had a good day yesterday for both. So some of it is just a little profit taking. I saw your funny money earlier, Rhino. It's down today, I believe, $700-800 last time I checked. Yeah, $340 down to 63,000. At least it's north of 60 because it has fallen below that. Not sure what the future holds for Bitcoin, what we're talking about. There's a huge Senate race in North Carolina coming up this fall, and it features former Governor Roy Cooper, the Democrat, on his side, and it's his name escapes me. Michael Whatley on the Republican side, I think former RNC chairman or vice chairman. That is a race that is expected to spend on both candidates' parts combined nearly $1 billion. Well, Cooper, just so you guys will know where he stands, he was on yesterday, MS Now. He was being interviewed, and he was asked his thoughts on the One Big Beautiful Bill Act. In fact, the anchor stated, is it my understanding you would have voted against that bill if you were at the Senate at that time? His answer, horrible legislation. So while I know folks are certainly concerned about, I am too, inflation and how the war drove up oil prices, that, of course, a huge factor as a massive input into so much petroleum is of what we consume, be it products or services, no doubt. But honestly, I thought it would have been worse given the spike we saw in oil. But the CPI inflation still slightly ahead of wages year to date in the year 26. Since Trump's been in office, real wages, that is nominal wages adjusted for inflation, are up. This year, they're slightly lagging, not by a great deal, but they are. But think about what your take-home pay, not just real wages because that's gross pay, would have been had the Trump tax cuts not been extended. And keep in mind, not a single Democrat voted for that. They wanted to let those expire, reinstating the Obama-era tax environment, which means everyone tuned in right now would have had more money taken out of their paychecks. If you're a small business, you would not have the 23% pass-through deduction. You'd have paid not only a higher tax rate, your taxable income would have been greater. I can't emphasize that enough, given how many folks we have in our state that are independent small business operators, and all of their income passes through directly to them. But this gets left out of the discussion often, Rhino, is that, okay, I get it, the inflation, the wages, but you're not talking about another big piece of that, and that's what you got to pay Uncle Sam. And the Democrats wanted you to pay more. Now, they'll tell you that, oh, Trump, he took all these, he gutted all the various welfare programs so he could give tax cuts to his buddies. That's complete nonsense horse hockey. The two are not related whatsoever, but they ride that wave and they promote that narrative, but it's untrue. And they don't get called out enough about it. But here's what North Carolinians, I hope, consider when they go to the polls in the fall, is that Roy Cooper wanted to, if he had been sitting in the Senate, he's letting you know he would have raised your taxes. That's just fact. He said it on the OMS Now, and of course I'm sure they were gushing over that because that's what they think. So, and that's consistent, of course, with socialist doctrine and communist doctrine, honestly. This guy Mondami, who's kind of the poster child for this movement in this country, he didn't celebrate July 4th. He was dire. He was negative. I didn't see that smile that I think largely put people in a trance and got them to vote for him. He gave a little bit of praise to the nation, to which he immigrated, by the way. But what really bothered me is that this guy became a citizen in 2018, born, of course, in Uganda, through the legal process, became an American citizen, but yet he's going to tell us what it's like to live in America. He said that for the powerful, America is an arena of supremacy where only a select few are allowed freedom, where not all are created equal. America, if you ask them, becomes less the more people it welcomes. America, they will tell you, belongs only to those with the right accent or the right shade of skin. He must be talking about white males, right? Who speak traditional English in a traditional Americanized English tone and accent. That's what he's talking about, because everything else goes to everybody else. They get the priority and the preferential treatment. Coming right back.
From theSeabrook.com weather.
Middays with Gerard Gibert. It is on SuperTalk, Mississippi.
And just in case you need a reminder of the difference in the two economic systems of capitalism and socialism, or let me be more precise with the data point I'm about to share, communism, look no further, Rhino, than the per capita GDP of the United States versus China. it's not a surprise that in this country, the GDP per capita is $86,000. That's the gross domestic product per individual in the country, 350 million roughly. Whereas over in China, it's $13,500. So think about this. The median household income in this country, you know what it is? $86,000. It's the same as the per capita GDP. Well, when your per capita GDP, as it is in China, is under $14,000, what that tells you is that there's little to no chance of having widespread affluence. And even our poor people are affluent relative to other countries.
You know what the median income in China is?
What?
Just over $5,000.
$5,000. Okay. And the median income, the median household income in this country is about $86,000. And the last time I looked at the per capita income, it's high 60s, low 70s. So that's per individual as opposed to per household. So in China, the median, that means half of its 1.2 billion people have an income less than that and half equal or more. That's pathetic. How could you not look at that and say, well, this is a poor country that largely lives in squanderous conditions? But they try to sell their people, and by sell, I mean they're trying to keep them in the dark about what alternative systems could do for their quality of life. They thrive on it. But there are people in this country that want to transition to this system. You think they've ever looked at this information? Now, does that mean it's perfect? And that's what bothers me, is that there's this expectation of perfection. I really think that
Which is ironic coming from communists.
Correct. Exactly. Now, our founders were brilliant in that they guided us. They stated, they declared in our founding documents that we Americans, we successors, should continue to press for a more perfect union. They got it. This ain't perfect. It's just better than everything else. Can we not take a little stock and recognize in just how much progress we've made? My gosh, it's incredible. Does that dismiss? Does that just eschew or abandon or show that we're trying to hide or disguise or dispense with our stains of the past? No. But you have to take some recognition of the improvements and the resolution to so many of those mistakes. That's why the quality of life continues to improve in this country. I personally believe there's more opportunity than ever in this country. Ever. But you know what? It takes a little work. It takes a little gumption. It takes a little initiative. If you're raised and you're all just consumed with this idea that the world owes you and you're just a permanent victim, well then, yeah, you're going to suck. Your life's going to suck. And I feel like all these people that are showing up on my post, they're just miserable. They're miserable humans. They really are. And I want to say, well, why don't you get your ass out and go work and go do something and make your life better? Like your priority is just to come over here and hurl insults at everybody that doesn't think like you? I guess so. They get some sort of perverse satisfaction out of that. Jimmy in Madison was listening to us earlier talk about this. He said, well said, fellas. Appreciate that, Jimmy. No ill will towards Mr. McConnell from Colby here on the C Spire text line. Looks to me that he should have stepped down by now due to his age and health. So if any comments are made towards him are due to a certain extent. He served way past the time he should have. And that's, of course, a whole nother debate, is it not, Rhino, as to, should there be term limits? Should there be any sort of mandatory age limit on members of Congress? That's just certainly a lively debate and a subject that is subject to debate, no doubt about it. Just because the man has health problems doesn't mean you can't disagree with his politics on the C Spire text line. That's absolutely accurate, but I think Rhino's right that in this period we should refrain from that, and we haven't done that. And you were gracious and I think humane enough to point out that I don't wish ill will on the man. And no, we don't. But we again appreciate his service, and we hope that he rests in peace. And our prayers are up for him and his family, whatever the situation is. It does seem like the end is likely near based on all the data we have, as you point out. But there'll be plenty of time to, of course, analyze and dissect his service and his decisions. And I want to apologize for when he was actively serving, some of the decisions he made that I felt were not in the best interest of the country. Simple as that. I'm not going to apologize for that. It's what we do here. That's kind of the way our founders envisioned the role of the press, right? So, unfortunately, we do have some mainstream press. We're an opinion show, of course, but we do have some news outlets that are supposed to just be more objective and report the news, who have turned into not only opinion outlets, but they're just they're mouthpieces for their party. And
just look at how many talking heads in mainstream media were all on board with the Biden is totally fine. He's doing cartwheels in the background and running circles around his aides, until they realized the American public would no longer buy their lies on debate night.
I mean, it was a total cover-up, and it's shameful on their part. It's disgusting, and it really illustrates just how much they were in the tank for that guy, and really had no interest in serving the public as a news reporting press outlet. They were more about protecting him, shielding him from criticism, shielding us from the truth. And that's disgusting. In fact, that, Rhino, is consistent with communism, right? When the government, the bourgeoisie, if you will, owns the press. They don't report objectively. There's no firewall between the two entities. They are mouthpieces for the government. That's how they keep their people oppressed and suppressed. Ricky in Aberdeen says, Rhino hit the nail on the head when he said Benny is trying to keep his constituents poor and stupid. Amen. I agree. Gary from Tishomingo, Benny always has his nose somewhere besides his district, where towns like Chula continue to rot to the ground, literally. So true. But today he's spending his cycles advising Americans not to sign up for the Trump accounts. That's all he's got to do. Jeez. Coming right back in the Element Wealth studio, it's Rickey Cole at 12:05.
up a...
You know what that means.
Middays with Gerard Gibert.
We'll do it live.
On SuperTalk, Mississippi.
Welcome back. It's Middays from the Element Wealth Studio. Are you thinking about or planning for retirement? Do you have a plan? Go to myelementwealth.com or call 601-957-6006 to let Element Wealth help you find your balance between income, growth, and guarantees. We got Sports Talk doing a remote on Friday. They're going to be in downtown Corinth for the annual Slug Burger Festival. It's one of the most fun events of the year with music, fun, and, of course, slug burgers. And then SEC Media Days, the unofficial start of the college football season. Sports Talk Mississippi is going to be live in Tampa starting on Monday, July the 20th, to get you ready for the biggest event of the off-season. That's SEC Media Days, brought to you by Pearl River Resort, Cannon Motors, and Mississippi Farm Bureau. Man, it's hard to believe. It's that time already, huh? Jeez. Let's see. Hogman says, I might need to post a few things for them to comment on. You ought to go check it out. It's on my Facebook site. Hogman, it just peruse the comments. You'll just be flabbergasted. I'm not kidding. Some real winners. Bubba in Starkville says, Mitch McConnell has been a disaster for conservatives and the Republican Party as of late. Yes, I give him credit for help on the court. Our founders would have overthrown this government years ago on the ceasefire text line. Let's see. James Comey, an arrest warrant has been issued. This is from Jerry in Waynesboro, hot off the press. I haven't seen anything come across the screen in the studio yet. That's interesting. Thomas in Greenwood, is it shameful that Republicans are covering up for McConnell? They are? I don't know what you're talking about, honestly. I understood your reference to my comment earlier that that I think the media, the left-wing media in particular in this country, good grief, it was almost an institutionalized cover-up, coordinated, corroborated, collaborated cover-up of Joe Biden's lack of mental acuity.
I'm not seeing anything new regarding an arrest warrant for James Comey. I mean, there was the story out in late April about him having the arrest warrant after he was indicted for the 8647 post.
That happened a while ago.
Yeah.
So, okay.
I haven't seen anything new.
Stephen in Fulton says, shouldn't be an age limit on terms, but for sure you should be held accountable for your physical and mental health. And I guess I would say, Stephen, you think that we voters would do that, right, at the polls. So you wonder, why do we keep sending the same people back? I've always felt like that many believe that, well, yeah, I want term limits, just not for my person, your person, not me. I can tell you that I won't reveal any names here, Rhino, but I've shared with you privately. There's at least a member or two, I'll just put it that way, in our legislature that would define themselves as really staunch conservatives, yet they oppose term limits. And their rationale is that, well, that means somebody less experienced might succeed me, which I don't think makes really a whole lot of sense, honestly. In fact, I think you need to rotate the crops, is what I think. And I think if we're talking about term limits, those shouldn't be relegated and restricted to just one office. The founders' vision was, and we've shared this before on the show, that you contribute to society as a private citizen, not an elected office person. And when your number's called, you go serve and you take care of the people's business, and then you get back. That's what they envision. I think it was Thomas Jefferson who famously said, when politics becomes a career, corruption will surely follow. He figured that out. He got it back then. And I think that we've seen that play out in many situations.
Maybe we should bring back the sacred jog from ancient Egyptian history, where if the pharaoh served, I think it's 30 years after their 30th year on the throne, they had to run around a course 4 times to represent the 4 edges of Egypt. And if they couldn't make it, that meant, all right, it's time for you to go. We need somebody newer, younger, fitter.
Okay. Well, that's a pretty good litmus test there, I would say. Jeff in Hattiesburg says, we send the same senators back because a challenger has no chance. All the party money goes to the incumbent. I hear you, Jeff, and I object to that as well, that the party does have a PAC, parties, all of them do, that generally speaking is used to fund the re-election efforts of incumbents. I disagree with that, honestly. But I guess I would still ask the question, Jeff, do the voters not know that, hey, one of these is an incumbent and the other's not? Fox News, SuperTalk News.
And now, another hour of the talk that keeps Mississippi talking. Middays with Gerard Gibert.
Begin your transition now.
Now on SuperTalk Mississippi.
Welcome back, everyone. It's hour 3, the afternoon portion of Middays, now live from the Element Wealth studio. It's our pleasure to welcome now Rickey Cole. He is the former chair of the Mississippi Democratic Party. Hey, Rickey, good to see you, man.
Hey, Gerard. Good afternoon. How are you, sir?
Doing fantastic. So, saw you a little bit over there at the fair this past year, right? A couple of weeks ago.
Oh, yeah. It was a good one. It had rained. It had cooled things off. So it was a lot more pleasant than the hot ones are.
Yeah, little different, but overall, I thought it was a good fair. Nothing earth-shaking that came out of it, but if there's anything, I think, Rickey, that truly does reflect the hospitality of our state, of Mississippians, it's that fair. Wouldn't you agree?
Oh, yeah. It's a great tradition. I just wish that more of the candidates would have come. We had a shortage of candidates, really speaking. I wish everybody on the ballot would show up. You know, it used to be required that you attend, but now a lot of people feel like they don't have to come.
Yeah, I agree. It's mostly we heard from those currently in office, and I don't think anything was too surprising that they shared with us during their remarks. Of course, between the morning show and my show, we got a chance to talk to those folks. Nothing too noteworthy that came out of that.
No, it was pretty tame compared to some I've seen.
Yeah. We do have, of course, a big U.S. Senate race approaching in November. The incumbent Republican Cindy Hyde-Smith has a couple of challengers. One, of course, the Democrat attorney Scott Colomb. And then we've also got an independent, Ty Pinkins. I can't remember the last time, Rickey, that we had an independent in a U.S. Senate race that I would say is perhaps as well known as Ty. And maybe that's because he's run for office in the past. Your thoughts?
Well, independents don't do well in Mississippi, but sometimes they wind up being a spoiler.
Yeah.
I think that's what happened in the 2014 Senate race with Senator Cochran and Chris McDaniel. There was an unknown third candidate that proved to be the spoiler. And then we had a similar situation when it was Secretary Espy and Cindy in their first go around. I think they had to go to a runoff because of a spoiler.
I think that's right.
Independents just they don't win in Mississippi, but sometimes they muddy up the water.
Yeah. So, Ricky, we've been talking this morning about this, what I kind of described as a socialism movement that seems to have really gripped a good bit of the Democratic Party. You're no doubt paying attention to some of these candidates that are winning their nominations in their respective districts, in particular for United States House with the midterms approaching. I've known you a while, and you and I have talked before. I don't get the feeling that you necessarily align with some of these candidates. And just curious as to what you think about how your party, and to some extent my party as well, we're fracturing a little bit. We've developed into factions within the party.
Well, you know, Federalist number 10 warns us against factions. And I think that you're exactly right. Factions are becoming too strong within the political parties. I think it's inevitable because of the attention economy atomizes everything to the point to where everybody's an expert. You know, most of the best doctors around have credentials on WebMD, and most of the best political consultants get all their information from TikTok. That's just the world we live in. I will tell you this: there is absolutely no mathematical possibility for there to be a socialist majority in the Democratic caucus of either the Mississippi legislature or the U.S. Congress. There have been socialists around for as long as Marx and Engels scribbled the manifesto, which just like Atlas Shrugged, you know what the Communist Manifesto and Atlas Shrugged have in common, don't you?
What's that?
They're both works of fiction. And neither one to be taken in any way literally, because they were written by people who didn't have much grasp on reality.
Okay.
But long story short, I've noticed these handful of folks around the country.
Okay.
And it's inevitable that something like that's going to pop up. But if they get to Congress, they'll do like Bernie. They'll spend 40 years introducing bills that don't get passed.
Yeah, that's probably right. But it does seem like that it's getting more traction, does it not, in the last couple of years, Ricky, than it has? You don't think so?
It's just getting more attention.
Okay.
It's just getting more attention.
Well, it's got my attention.
Because there's so many. Well, I understand, and you have a right to be fully vested in the perpetuation and expansion of capitalism. Not only from your philosophical point of view, but from your bank account. You're an investor. You're a capitalist, a successful capitalist. So you'd be a fool to be anything else. But I don't think that this is anywhere on the top 10 or top 20 concerns that face the people of the United States every day. I think our number one concern is our national debt, and probably number two, and a close number two, in terms of our problems, is civic illiteracy. I think people are so ignorant about the way our government is supposed to work that they don't even recognize a problem until it's too late. And democracy only works when the sovereign people are well informed. And most of the sovereign people in the United States are very much ill-informed. And that troubles me almost as much as the national debt bothers you.
So what would your prescription be for that problem, the lack of literacy regarding our systems, just our civic world?
Well, we don't teach it enough in the schools, public or private. I'm connected to a lot of different families that have children who are still in school, and I have one that's still in high school. And it's worse than it ever was in terms of the children being taught in, I would say, beginning in elementary school and then junior high and high school, the basics of citizenship, the duties of citizenship, not just the benefits, but the duties and responsibilities. We just don't emphasize that. I'll tell you a little something that I found interesting. I saw an article the other day that said that the current generation doesn't know the words to the national anthem. There's a majority of the current generation that doesn't know the first verse of the national anthem. And that's a little thing, but it's a big thing, because we were taught the pledge and we were taught the national anthem in first grade. You know, we didn't have kindergarten when I was coming up, but if we don't teach the patriotism, if we don't teach civic duty and civic responsibility, if we don't teach the Constitution, if we don't teach the Declaration, if we don't teach all of our American history, good, bad, and ugly, and give people some cross-cultural experiences too. I think cultural illiteracy is another one of our problems. I think we live too much in silos and we separate ourselves socially to the point to where we make opponents out of people who have nothing against us, and we make friends out of people with whom we have little in common. And I think a lot of that is the fault of the schools, it's the fault of the families. But also I think adult people need to step away from all these damnable conspiracy theories and start making their decisions based on facts, true facts, not just something that confirms their biases. If you're always right all the time, you're wrong.
That's a good way to put
Nobody's
it.
always right all the time.
We got a break on us
You're not
right here.
thinking deep enough.
Can you hang with us and talk some more? All right, we got Rickey Cole, former chair of the Mississippi Democratic Party, on the line with us. We're coming right back from the Element Wealth studio.
Hey, this is Bob.
Check it out. Let's do this.
The talk that keeps Mississippi talking. Middays with Gerard Gibert.
Let's get on with it.
On SuperTalk, Mississippi.
We're back with you in the Element Wealth studio. We're talking to Rickey Cole. He's former chair of the Mississippi Democratic Party. So, all right, Rickey, so you believe that these candidates that have evolved and have secured nominations on the Democratic side that describe themselves as socialist, a couple even have some past statements that indicate they would favor communism as the preferred system, economic system in this country. You made the point that they're just going to end up like Bernie Sanders if they go on to get elected and are seated in the House, that there won't be a majority, that the majority of your party won't align with their viewpoints or any measures that they may introduce, which means they'll just be ineffective sitting in the Congress, and they may just be a naysayer, and they may actually block the Democrat agenda. Same thing happens on the Republican side, as you know. There are factions, as we talked about earlier, and we got that going on right now. We have one member of Congress that essentially shut down the entire House on the Republican side until a certain measure makes it through. And so they sent them all home. That's going on right now.
Yeah, as closely divided as the House and Senate are. You see with Senator McConnell's illness and you see with, shall we say, the diversity of opinion, particularly with members like the soon-to-be former congressman from Kentucky, Mr. Massey, who I think is more libertarian than Republican, and then the congresswoman from Florida who was so adamant about it. You know, in the Senate, it's not unusual for one member to shut things down, but the House is so tight. The same thing happens in the House sometimes. But one thing's for sure that I have learned over my time of being involved: anybody can get elected to Congress. And unfortunately, some of the ones who are there seem to have just one talent, and that's the ability to get reelected.
Yeah, that's not unique to any party, as you know, for sure.
Oh, yeah. Right.
Well, where do you stand, Rickey, on term limits? You know, you hear that a lot, and that there's actually an effort to convene a convention of the states with that being proposed as a constitutional amendment. Where do you stand on that?
Well, first of all, I don't think we need a convention of the states. We've never had one.
That's right.
And I don't think in the current atmosphere, rational people would be happy with the outcome of a convention of the states. I believe it would be, to use one of my wife's pet phrases, it would be a hot mess. But in terms of term limits, I think our problem is not that they stay too long, it's that they run unopposed. I think it's a shame and a disgrace that we have members of the legislature and of the Congress, House, and Senate who have perhaps one competitive election, and they stay there forever. And I think part of that is the Citizens United decision. I think part of it is unwarranted incumbent protection in redistricting and also in campaign finance. But I think the best remedy to our problem is to have more and better candidates willing to challenge incumbents. And it shouldn't be such a secure post. It should never be a lifetime sinecure. And that's one of the reasons I have a problem with all of this jumped up redistricting. I think that every time you change the district lines, it's going to be done in such a way to favor the incumbent that much more, because it's the incumbents that are drawing the lines. And that's absolutely the fact in Mississippi. Incumbent protection is going to be the number one goal of all the redistricting. It's not going to be about party. It's going to be about protecting the incumbents. And that's rigging the system. And I think it's one of the things that turns people off to politics. But long story short, I think member of Congress term, a member of the House term is 2 years. He or she ought to have to run like hell every 2 years, and senators ought to have to run like hell every 6 years, and that would fix the problem. But again, that's going to require some civic, and it's going to require better people, better quality of people to step up and say, yeah, I'll do this for 2 years. I may not like it. I may not even run in 2 years, but I'll do this for 2 years. I'll do this for 6 years, and I'll go up there and do a good job. Some of the best leaders we have had have only served in one or both of the houses of Congress a combined term of 10, 12 years or less.
Interesting. And what about at the state level, Rickey? It seems like that it's always the next person up. You know, you serve at this level, and you move to the next level, move to climb, like riding the elevator up and down, mainly up.
Well, in Mississippi, it's always been that way, but Mississippi has always been sort of an oligarchy one way or the other. And within oligarchies, you have hierarchies. You look at the way, it's not too different from the way the Soviet Politburo or the current Chinese Communist leadership works. You know, it's the next guy in line, and if he's still able to sit up and take nourishment, they'll keep him at the table until he forgets his name. drops dead in the middle of the floor. But yeah, if there weren't term limits for governor, there used to be a 4-year term limit for governor, and there was a term limit for treasurer too. If there weren't term limits for governor, I'm not sure it'd even be a game of musical chairs. I think it would be. I think you'd see somebody like Mr. Heber Ladner, who was Secretary of State for nearly 40 years. You'd see the same, and we had an auditor, Hamp King, that was in the auditor position forever, and Jim Buck Ross was Commissioner of Agriculture forever. So I think that some of this movement we see now is greater movement than we saw in the past, even with just the 1-year term on the governorship.
Yeah, I think that's probably right. There's a lot of truth to that. So we got the midterms coming up. Typically, as you know, the party that controls the White House, if they also have the majority in the House, that usually we see a flip. Do you expect that this time?
Well, as I told you before, if I was good at predicting, I'd be a weatherman. I think regardless of what happens in November, you're going to see a closely divided Senate and closely divided House, one way or the other.
Yeah,
I don't think either party makes big gains in terms of the majority may flip, but it takes a handful for the majority to flip in the House or the Senate. But as we discussed a little while ago, it takes. I think it was Jefferson who said you can't force major innovations on a slim majority, a grand policy on a slim majority. So I think the next 2 years will not be dissimilar to these previous 2 years in terms of the makeup of the Congress. I may be wrong. I'm wrong more often than I am right, but I don't see it being a blowout for either party on the national level.
No, I agree. But of course, as you know, flipping control of the House pretty much would put the Trump agenda on ice, just as when that happened, I remember distinctly during the first midterm, during President Obama's first term, he famously said, "We got shellacked," and that put his agenda on ice, honestly, for the remaining 6 years of the 8 years that he served. But he got some big wins from his perspective in those first two.
Well, I don't think the president had many legislative wins in this 2 years when he's had the House and Senate in terms other than the BBB. I can't think of much that he got through the Congress that will be considered monumental.
I think that's right.
Or change,
yeah.
I don't think much has been accomplished thus far. I disagree with some of the stuff that has been accomplished, but all in all, he had a wheelbarrow full, and he's delivered about a thimbleful so far.
Well, as you know, unless the filibuster is nuked, you've got the 60-vote situation, and so anything of significance would have to be passed through the budget reconciliation process, which means it's got to be budget-related, and that's what the One Big Beautiful Bill Act was. Not much left after that you can get through 60 votes. Got about 30 seconds left. Your thoughts?
The Senate works the way it's supposed to work with the filibuster. The Senate's supposed to slow things down and make people think about it and talk about it some more. When legislation is ripe and the public support it, it'll get passed.
Gotcha.
And until it does, it needs to be slowed down and stopped.
Always enjoy talking to you, Ricky. Appreciate you coming on. Rickey Cole, former chair of Mississippi Democratic Party. Have a good one, my friend. Thanks.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Coming right back in the Element Well studio.
From thecebro.com.
With Gerard Gibert.
Welcome to our shop
on SuperTalk, Mississippi.
Okay, now you have a good one.
Welcome back. It's Middays from the Element Wealth Studio. Jeff in Hattiesburg on the C Spire text line says, we send the same senators back because a challenger has no chance. All the party money goes to the incumbent. And keep this in mind, Jeff. You're right. It does. The Republican, the National Senate, I can't remember what, NSRC, I think, National Senate Republican Committee. Did I get that right? That's the PAC, of course. They make it very clear. They only support incumbents. They exist to fund the campaigns of incumbents, but they only invest, as you know, Rhino, when there's a formidable challenger in the primary. In general, they allocate their money based on that. So when they think a challenger is mounting an effective challenge to an incumbent, they get involved financially. But it also, what does it say, Jeff, to your point about how big a factor money is in winning political races? I think that's an issue as well. I was talking earlier about this race in North Carolina, expected that $1 billion is going to be spent. In Texas, $850 million is the latest estimate. The most expensive Senate race in history was Ohio, 24. That was $450 million. It's insane. It really is. It's crazy. And you've got some people who are, actually many, who are independently wealthy before they ever run. And they dump a lot of their own money. The individual, his name escapes me, Rhino, that just won the nominee for governor on the Republican side in Georgia, he's a self-made entrepreneur, wealthy individual. I think spent $100 million or if not more on his own campaign in Georgia for governor.
Rick Jackson?
That's it, yeah. You see that? $100 million or more than $100 million maybe of his own dough on that campaign. And then you wonder, I guess it's name ID.
$8 million so far.
108, okay. So are we voters, are we that influenced by, I guess, the frequency, the volume of content that ends up before our eyes and ears, promoting a candidate, campaigning for a candidate? We see them all over social media, the internet, even when you do your searches and stuff. And then, of course, on all the other media outlets, such as this network. Is that what influences us? It seems so. It's certainly not debates, because we don't have many of those. Very few. And certainly in primaries, where people can be exposed to the quality of a candidate, not just their policy positions, but how they handle themselves in such a setting. We don't have enough of those, in my view. But I hear you. It's an issue. Let's see. Our founding fathers never envisioned a Congress that would stay in session most of the year, every year. They meant for a congressman to be a part-time job, not a full-time job. That's Mose. I agree, Mose. But, man, it's evolved into something else besides that, for sure. No doubt about it. Matt in Burnsville said, I remember back when I lived in North Dakota, Senator Quentin Burdick was older than Mitch. His staffers propped him up for years. It's sad that it's come to this. My opinion that it's elder abuse. You know, I thought the same somewhat about Jill Biden and Joe Biden. I think she knew that he had some physical and mental difficulties, and probably knew that he was not suited for the job, but yet she pushed it. I felt like that's the case, that she could have stepped in and prevented and avoided that. On the C Spire text line, talking about earlier, I was reciting some of the comments, some of the remarks from Zoran Mondami, the mayor of New York City's speech Saturday, which I felt was somewhat anti-American. On our C Spire text line, he's one of the reasons I believe only American-born citizens should be allowed to run for any political office. And I get it. The sad thing is that American citizens align with him as well. That's what is even more bothersome. So you could kind of understand it, and I guess maybe even excuse it, his perspective, given that he was born in Uganda and became a citizen a short 8 years ago. But how do you justify it? How do you rationalize it when it's coming from American citizens that were born and raised here? Ricky in Aberdeen says, Mr. Cole has a good point about having more people run against incumbents, but the big problem there is having the money to fund a campaign against any incumbent. So I hear you, Ricky, and I agree that is always a deterrent, which is why that often you see challengers be those who can dump a lot of money in. It's what happened in Georgia. He was not challenging an incumbent, but he was challenging who was thought to be the heir apparent, the lieutenant governor. And you see the same thing as Ricky was talking about in the state of Mississippi, where the top two offices, governor and lieutenant governor, are term limited, but all the other statewide are not. So what happens is those serving in those other statewide offices, they're continuously raising money, even though they're not raising it necessarily for their campaign in the next election cycle, because, again, they don't get very strong challengers, as Ricky and others on our text line have pointed out. So they just build this war chest while they're in office to run for a higher office. It's exactly what you see happening right now. And the reason they're able to build that war chest is because while they're in those offices, the lobbyists open up their checkbooks to stay in good favor with them, not only for their current office, but for their future potential office. Rhino, am I exaggerating that system right there?
No.
That's exactly how it works. I just want to confirm I know it's my opinion, but I don't think I'm out in left field on this whatsoever. Rob in Hattiesburg says, same was true with Thad Cochran. There's some truth to that. I agree, Rob, that I think Senator Cochran, God rest his soul, and thank him for his service. I think that was evident by the fact, as you recall, during that cycle, he didn't make a lot of public appearances and did not. Now, it's not unusual for an incumbent to refuse a debate, though. You have to agree with that. And their consultants would tell them, you only do that if absolutely necessary. Usually you're behind in the polls is when they say, yeah, you need to go debate. So typically it's considered something that can only harm you, not help you. Speaking of harm, Cuba, blackout again. Speaking of the harm of communist systems, they're experiencing yet another blackout here in the middle of the summer. Is the island nation. Not good. Mike from Columbus says Jill Biden wanted the auto pen. A lot of truth to that. Now, we were talking with Ricky about all the opinions that get shaped by various sources. I said the media, I thought, was engaged in covering up the whole Joe Biden situation. Certainly the internet and social media, things get out there, they get viral, they get repeated, they get shared. And I'll give you an example. There was a post yesterday by one of the local television outlets. Could raising the payroll tax rate save Social Security? And that's another discussion for another day, but that we may get to it today. But just looking at the comments, how about putting Congress on Social Security and take their lifetime salary and lifetime medical benefits away? Except that's not true. They are on Social Security. They do, I should say, have to participate in Social Security. That's been in effect since the 80s. They do not receive a lifetime salary, and they do not receive lifetime medical benefits. But I can't tell you the number of times I've seen that statement made. That is a perception. It's a misconception. And so, okay, next, because that's wrong, so that's not anything that's of value to this conversation about Social Security's insolvency. Another says the federal government paying back the money it took from Social Security would save it. That's not true either. No money's ever been taken. It was loaned, paid back with interest. It's the way Social Security invests its money. It's the only vehicle it has. Nothing improper there. In fact, it'd be worse without that. Coming right back.
For all your Mississippi.
Properly set all controls before recording.
All systems go.
The talk that keeps Mississippi talking. Middays with Gerard Gibert on SuperTalk Mississippi.
When I wake up in the morning, love, and the sunlight hurts my eyes.
We are back in the Element Well studio, so we couldn't get this to play, but you remember, Rhino, back in 21, I believe it was, we were shocked, I certainly was, when the British medical journal, The Lancet, which is considered one of the preeminent medical periodicals in the world. Lots of contributions from medical doctors and scientists, all in an effort to educate, inform, and improve the quality of healthcare. Except they jumped the shark when they decided to go full woke in 21, and they featured a cover with the phrase "bodies with vaginas," promoting an article inside about poverty and a menstrual exhibition at the Vagina Museum. But they went, I've never even heard of the Vagina Museum. I do remember the issue in the article, but the biggest thing, as you recall, was this was really an effort to blur the lines, the distinctions between biological males and biological females. And they made the assertion that, oh yeah, men can have babies and women can have penises. This was in a medical journal. And then after that, it just seemed like that line of thinking, that narrative, really became common and invaded the medical schools in this country. All over the place you saw that, including the woke American Medical Association. Well, I guess you could call this good news. There was an exchange between a news anchor and the Labor Party's health secretary, James Murray. They're in charge, of course. And the anchor says, "You're quite pro-trans, aren't you? Do you think a woman can have a penis because you did previously?" You know what he said? No, I don't. So you've changed your mind? Yes. Why? He kind of stumbled on it a bit. He says, "I've been thinking about the issue over recent years and would not now say trans women are women." Huh? Did this guy have an epiphany or something? What the heck happened here? He really didn't have any answer. Didn't really have, I've been thinking about it. So you spent several years believing that to be the case. Essentially, that biological sex is kind of fluid, that it's not binary, it's not polar. But again, magically, you've kind of changed your mind. That's the level of delusion within the government of UK, and make no mistake, it existed within the Biden regime as well. And there are remnants of the Biden administration still serving inside the Trump administration. They just aren't as vocal about it because it's one of the first things this president did was said, yeah, they're biological men and they're biological women. And we're declaring so, which is insane. You have to do that. I thought that was interesting, though. Well, and Rhino's keeping up with the soccer game right now, the match. What's going on right now?
The defending world champions were looking down and out against the Egyptian Pharaohs, but looks like Messi and co. have come back to take a 3-2 lead in stoppage time.
Messi, absolute beast. I believe, last I checked, highest paid professional athlete on the planet, right?
Oh, yeah.
And those that complain about the salaries of CEOs, pretty sure he makes more than any CEO in the world. But guess what? That's what the organization has agreed to pay him. They must be getting a lot of value out of his performance and his being a member of the team. Otherwise, they wouldn't pay him. That's the piece that the left in this country just doesn't seem to get. He generates enormous amount of revenue for that organization and lots of others to whom he associates his name. Absolutely incredible. We'll see what happens. It's pretty cool. Let's see on the C Spire text line before we go. He changed his mind because the majority of the population had made it known that we think that logic is ridiculous. We are out of here today, back again tomorrow. Stay safe and God bless everyone.
A SuperTalk Mississippi media production.